Good morning again. This is a session about how to manage your dashboards and reports effectively in Power BI. For a lot of the enterprise customers, I closely work with a lot of teams within Microsoft, evangelizing and how to architecting solutions within Microsoft, as well as external customers, including predominantly enterprise customers who have deployments anywhere ranging from 1,000 to 3,000 to 5,000 customers in terms of deploying this, right? And how do I effectively manage this? And one of the most common questions that come up is how do I effectively manage my dashboards and reports and everything? This is the most common question I get because I don't have like a hierarchical view. This is why when Samuel mentioned, okay, this is one of the topics I would like you to cover, I said, okay, definitely I'll share all the experiences in terms of what are the best practices which I provide right now to the customers. And we have some plans in terms of improving this experience as incrementally in terms of features. But this is the best recommendations in terms of list of steps. Okay. So if you look at Power BI, essentially it's a software as a service, essentially for creating live operational dashboards to make sure that you have live operational dashboards where you're integrating content from various sources and being able to your end users are able to go and explore, discover data, get insights, and then they can take actions. We covered most of the things during the presentation, and then some of it Romy covered earlier. And when you look at Power BI, this is the data flow view of Power BI. I need to find out yeah. So this is the data flow view of Power BI. So here you have business analysts who are actually preparing reports, essentially in Excel in terms of pivot tables or pivot charts. And here you have interactive reports created using Power BI Desktop. Now when you go into your, what you see here is on-premise data sources. It could be SQL Server analysis services or other data sources. These reports directly connect to these sources here, and directly you're publishing these reports to Power BI service. Once you publish it, you need to go and set up data refreshes, right? So to make sure that the data is refreshed automatically every day or like a few hours a day, whatever the case may be, depending on your data latency, because you want to make sure that your end users who are actually going to be using these dashboards, how fast do they need the data, right? So do you want it like every 30 minutes, every hour, or like every half a day? A lot of it depends on what your business users are going to be using it. And in addition to that, how fast is your data pipe as well, right? You might be gathering the data. If it's Twitter, it's coming out in a few seconds. But if it could be that your backend processing system in terms of getting it from all of the stores in terms of sales information might be a nightly job, then there's no need to process it every hour. You can just process it once a day, right? So here you would go and set up data refreshes. When you go and set up data refreshes, if it's on-premise source, you need something called as enterprise gateway or a personal gateway. This diagram shows as enterprise gateway because it's primarily intended for teams who are building dashboards. What is the best practice in terms of building dashboards for a team or a group of people? So we recommend using enterprise gateway. So this is Power BI to reach out to your on-premise cloud, on-premise server, and get the data periodically. It could be either data refresh, or it could be a direct query mode or a live connection to your analysis services where these are interactive reports. Power BI will be sending directly queries when your end users interact with the reports. Okay? And then here you have Microsoft Cloud with respect to Azure Data Services and Dynamics and Office 365. You can directly connect to this Power BI in terms of getting the data from these sources. And you also have non-Microsoft Cloud. This is where the SaaS content packs come in, software as a service content pack. These are non-Microsoft cloud sources like Salesforce or Dynamics or Marketo, Google Analytics. All of this we partnered closely, and these are refreshing the data. So if you're refreshing the data from any of these sources in terms of the cloud, you don't need a gateway, right? So you don't need a gateway if you're refreshing the data from any of the sources. You don't need the gateway. The gateway is only required when you go and reach out to data which is on-premise right now. Okay. Now, and then finally, the consumption is essentially in the web browser or the mobile app. These are the two things which you already saw in the demos in terms of these are the key mechanisms by which customers are consuming the data. Obviously, you can embed these into the apps as well. If you're building your own apps, you can actually embed these into the apps. Yes?
How efficient is the gateway when it comes to the on-premise solution? Is it as fast or nearly as fast as if you would not use it and go directly in the cloud?
Yeah, so the question is how fast is the gateway, how efficient it is. Essentially, if you're connecting to any of the data, whether it's on the cloud or on-premise, the gateway adds very, very little overhead overall. Right? Think of it as like a data pipe in a secure way, which is passing the information of the Power BI service is requesting this data, and I'm going to go and send it out to the backend. It does some authentication, authorization things in terms of whether which credentials do I need to use to go and fetch the data. That is still typically you have to do this for the cloud as well, right? So even here, even though we say that there is no gateway here, internally we host the gateway for you, which actually does these operations here, right? Here, essentially, this is the enterprise gateway which you are setting up for your organization. You have control in terms of a little bit. You can actually do governance exactly. Who are the people who actually have access permissions to use the gateway? Who can refresh the data? You can actually monitor who is actually accessing the data through the gateway. Yes, go ahead.
By experience, we noticed that the access through the gateway is faster than the access.
Okay. Okay. So they noticed that the access through the gateway is faster for the on-premise. A lot of it depends on the latency, right? So when I say latency, there is a website called Azure Speed Test. I've done a lot of performance investigation. The customers, enterprise customers, they say like, I want to understand like what the performance is. Not necessarily in terms of the gateway refreshes. Mostly people are concerned about live interactive connectivity to their analysis services, and then they want to get the best performance. Obviously, no one wants to get slow performance, right? So in those cases, like what is the best optimal performance which we can get? So in those cases, what we've observed is essentially the latency between Power BI to your source, right? We are going to be gated by that, right? And you can actually go and measure that using, there is a Azure Speed Test, there is a website, if you go and search on it, it will give you latency from your machine to your, essentially to various data centers, right? So that's a good way for you to understand what is the latency and then predict like what might be the latency we might experience, okay? So in terms of authoring life cycles or content development life cycles, this is a typical process where analyst is essentially creating content, right? And they're in terms of creating the initial report and then creating a dashboard, and then they have to manage it in terms of setting up the refresh. And then how do they collaborate with other people, right? So this is one of the key important one. Initially, an analyst starts with creates a report and a dashboard and then shares it with a few people. Then everyone starts depending on it, and if the person is going on vacation, then you're completely stuck, right? So if there's something goes wrong, then you're completely stuck. So then how do they, or you might have to call them and they're not going to be happy if they're on vacation and they need to support you, right? So that's one of the things you want to make sure that you can collaborate with other people. So that like if you're on vacation, there is another person who is actually a backup who can actually help you during your vacation so that you're not getting disturbed, right? So that's essentially a piece in terms of, not only in terms of people collaborating in terms of backup so that like if you're going on vacation, other people can help you, but there are instances where there are multiple, in some teams I've seen multiple analysts actually preparing content and dashboards for overall to get an aggregated dashboard. So each of them own different reports. Essentially, even if within my VP's organization, my VP owns like several services, right? So in terms of Power BI, in terms of on-premise business intelligence, these are multiple teams within my VP, and they aggregate all of this information into a single dashboard, and each of the teams own their respective dashboard creation. Then in terms of aggregating all of this content, they are part of a group. That's what we'll talk about. How do they collaborate and prepare the overall aggregated dashboard? I can share some examples of that as well. So that's where what we mean by collaborate. And then finally, distributing the content. Right, so the distributing of the content, we have multiple mechanisms by which you can distribute the content in terms of simple sharing, in terms of with an email address, or it could be a security group or an Office 365 group, or you can publish as a content pack as well. Right, these are multiple mechanisms. We'll dive into those details as well. Let's look at create. So in terms of creation, I walked through this with the initial demo. Essentially, there are multiple ways in terms of getting content, creating the content. Right, and I'm going to still going to do a repeat of the demo, especially for the recording. So essentially, when you get into the service, there are multiple ways by which you can actually get the data. So you can actually directly connect to some of the sources here in terms of big data and more sources. This is essentially, you have Azure Stream Analytics or HD Insight and everything. So these are large data sources where you can connect to, and you can connect to your on-premise data sources, data from files, and then from your organization as well. And then this is the demo which you earlier saw in terms of popular SaaS services. Okay. So if you look at the popular SaaS services, these are an examples of things which the software as a service content pack, where we have closely partnered with each of them. Initially, when we started the whole project, I think the first content pack which we worked on was Salesforce, right? And we wanted to look at, from a sales manager perspective, if this is the data, what are the key metrics the sales manager will look for? We actually authored the report with multiple pages, and then a dashboard that was created, and this was published. So when an end user comes into Power BI, they enter the Salesforce credential. We can actually connect as a Salesforce manager or a Salesforce reports, and it will automatically create pre-built dashboards and reports for you, and then the end users can actually go and ask questions on top of this. Similarly, we had replicated this for every single software as a service provider. Initially, we started working with each of them closely, signing up the partnership, understanding the data model, collaborating closely, and preparing each of these data model. Some of it was already created by the product team, from the Power BI product team. Now, it's gained a significant amount of adoption. Every single person wants to integrate into Power BI. Now, we've actually made this completely programmatically available for each of the SaaS providers, software as a service providers, so that they can actually prepare it, test it, and publish it completely. Okay. And then this, the other way to create the content is Power BI Desktop. This is where you would actually, you are actually using Power BI Desktop, which is essentially we have combined Power Query, Power Pivot, and Power View, which is technologies from Microsoft, from self-service. We have combined all of them and put it into a much more seamless experience. Because if you're in Excel right now, we initially aligned with Excel, and it's still in Excel. In terms of people who are using Excel, you can still leverage Power Query and Power Pivot and leverage it. But those are add-ins into Excel. But here it's a much more integrated, streamlined flow, because there we are integrated into Excel as an add-in. Here it's a much more streamlined flow. I want to go and get the data and content, and then the report modeling and report authoring is blended together much more seamlessly. While there you have to go into the modeling window of Power Pivot window and then come back and write the reports in terms of pivot table. Here it's much more blended together, so that it's much more easier experience for the end users. Right? All of the things has been designed primarily to make sure whoever we're targeting as an end user, as the analyst or the end user, it's much more simple and easy for them, and we do a significant amount of customer study to prepare this. Okay, so here this is the primary report authoring content tool. So it says specifically for interactive reports. What we mean by interactive reports is if I click on specifically, for example, if I click on this bar chart, the remaining visuals are actually filtered so that you get insights. What are the key things, values for this particular interaction, right? And then finally, after this, these essentially you can actually, after you author these reports, you can actually publish it. Might not be very clear here. This is the publish icon. You can directly publish it to the service, or you can save it on your file and the desktop, and then upload the file as well into the service. So both options are available, and this desktop is essentially updated every single month. Every single month, which if you watch the blog posts, typically it's usually the last week of the month, the blog posts come out, and we publish all of the new features come out in terms of the end of the month, and the service gets updated every week. So you will see features every week in the Power BI service. That we have been doing this since December 18th, since our initial launch, December 18th of 2014. Every single week we have features landing, and initially we started writing blog posts every week. We got feedback, there's too much blog posts to read. So we've actually done batching up all of the service-related features also, and doing a blog post once a month so that people can actually keep up and follow through overall. And I coordinate the What's New session as well as the edX video, which Romy talked about. I coordinate and prepare all of the new features that are coming in, what are the videos, so that those get posted. Those are also closed caption in terms of with multiple languages, so you can actually go and listen to those videos as well. And then this is essentially creating dashboards. So I didn't walk through the dashboard creation initially, so I'll try to walk through this in terms of the creation to show an example. How do you create a dashboard here? A dashboard is a collection of what we call as, dashboard is a collection of what we call, these are tiles, and these tiles can come from various different sources. Dashboard is a collection of tiles. So these tiles can come from various different sources. As an example, these could be Excel Publisher, where you're publishing a data range that is actually published as a visual that essentially becomes a tile on this dashboard. or any of the reports, which if you have authored a Power BI desktop report, then the report contains multiple visuals. You can actually go and take a particular visual and pin it to the dashboard. That's what another example of seeing this. And then we also have the functionality to add a tile directly from the service, in terms of I can connect to a video or text, and I can add it, or images on the cloud. So these are various ways by which you can actually prepare these. And dashboard is an aggregation of various tiles, and these tiles are expected to be live. So these tiles are coming from various different sources, and they will be refreshing periodically, and the dashboard automatically refreshes. That's why we have the hallway monitors in Redmond, so that like the data is always changing depending on the data refresh frequency which you set up. Okay. Now drilling a little bit further, what are the various types of tiles, right? So which you can prepare. So this essentially shows up in terms of you have report tiles. This is any report tile. What we mean by report tiles is you have a Power BI desktop report, and any visuals which are there in that Power BI desktop report, if you pin it onto the dashboard, that's a report tile. Then Excel tiles, this is essentially selecting a data range from Excel and then pinning it into the dashboard. That's what you are having Excel tile. You have Q&A and insights. So essentially Q&A is you can actually go and type questions. You saw the visuals changing. You can actually pin that visual also into the dashboard, right? You can actually not only ask questions, but also go and pin it to the dashboard. These are the metrics I want to monitor. And then you have widgets. This is essentially, widgets are essentially what I mentioned is like I can connect to a public video. So one of the examples, recommendations I make to the customers is if you're launching a dashboard to a set of business users, how do they go about using the dashboard? They can actually do a recording of a video, add this video into the dashboard, so that initially when they come to the dashboard, they can actually listen in on the video, learn how to use the dashboard, and then progressively you can see later after 2 weeks you can remove the video so that you can utilize the space later. Okay. So here, drilling into a little bit more in terms of the tiles. So you have the report tile, which is essentially could be coming from direct query or a live connection to a source on premise or on the cloud. It could be a cloud model. When we say cloud model, this is where you're taking a Power BI desktop file, where you have imported the data from various sources, mashed it up together, and you're uploading this to Power BI. That's what we call as a cloud model, because the model is actually hosted on the cloud in the Power BI service. That's what we call as a cloud model. Or it could be a reporting services, where I showed the icon in terms of I can select a particular visual in reporting services. I can pin it to Power BI. It'll ask you to log in into Power BI. That reporting services visual tile is also kept up to date. Then you have the Excel tiles. This essentially can come from Excel charts and visuals or Excel ranges. You can select a data range. That's what Romy demoed. You can do the Q&A tiles, or even essentially the widgets. You can have a text or a video or a web content you can actually embed here. Okay. Now, what are the key functionality with respect to tiles? You can actually go into tile in an in-focus mode and actually do several operations on the tile, very similar to what Romy showed on the mobile app. You have additional functionality which comes in the tile. I'll show as part of the demo. And you can also navigate to custom URLs. So some cases like where you have a tile which is created, by default it actually lands you into the report page wherever you initially pinned it, but you can actually go and customize and say that like I don't want this to land into this page, I want to land into a different page, right? Some examples would be like I have an aggregated data where actually I'm creating a visual for the aggregated data, and I'm actually pinning that, and then I want to land, when the user, if the sales amount changes, I want to land the user in a different report page. You can actually do a custom URL and actually land the user into that one. And then you can export the data from a tile. You can do additional scoped insight. I'll try to do this. And then alerting is essentially what you saw on the mobile app, where you can set up mobile alerting right now. Okay. So let's get into demo of this. So I'm going to just quickly just repeat probably a minute or 90 seconds what you saw in the Power BI desktop. So this is essentially a report authoring tool, the Power BI desktop, what you saw. And you have various different sources from which you can connect here. Essentially in terms of files, databases, Azure, online services. These are like software as a service providers, like what we partnered with. Essentially, whatever you're available as a software as a service content pack on the service, we also provide the connectivity in the Power BI desktop here as well. And then a few other sources in terms of OData feed and SharePoint lists and everything, right? So you have all of these in terms of ability to connect. Then once you connect, you can actually come in into you can import the data, transform the data, and then come and establish the relationships here within the data model. Here, this is an import scenario where you're importing directly into the Power BI desktop. And after you import, you can actually go and author the reports. Essentially, what you're seeing here, you can author these reports directly here, and then you can, once you save this file, you can actually go and upload this into the service. Right? There are a lot of functionality as part of the desktop in terms of creation. One of the key things is what we call as DAX. So DAX is a data analysis expression. Let me go up here. So data analysis expression. So what you see here is essentially, how many of you are familiar with DAX? Okay, some of you are familiar. MDX? Okay. So MDX is essentially for multi-dimensional model, and when we actually started working on a simpler structure as part of self-service, people understand tables and columns much more simpler and easier way. So that's why if you see analysis services tabular, it's essentially tables and columns is what the concepts are done. And DAX was at that point in time, it was DAX was more of expression language when we initially introduced Power Pivot V1. Right, that's what it was in Power Pivot V1 in 2010. DAX was a language which we prepared. It's an expression language, very, very similar to Excel. If you see all of the functions, we have replicated several of the Excel functions, and then we've added all the business intelligence functions as part of that. Then as we ventured into 2012 and we wanted to provide the functionality, we extended that as a query language as well. So you have expressions and query languages. So if you see Power BI will be sending queries to DAX queries to tabular models. What you see here is expressions here. So here what I'm doing here is essentially a DAX calculation in terms of year-to-date revenue, right? So this is essentially, if you want to do this in SQL, it's reasonably complex in terms of you need to do a group by and do a join and everything. Here, this is a very simple calculation in terms of year-to-date revenue, in terms of last year-to-date revenue. So which is essentially saying my current year-to-date revenue, and I'm comparing this same period last year with the date. Date recognizes date is one of the important things with respect to BI. So we have some date function specifically. So it recognizes the date, and then it gives you the last year, what is the year-to-date revenue for the same period, right? In the context of time, it automatically prepares this. So you have the ability to go and author these. Escape. You have the ability to go and author this using DAX. So there are multiple DAX calculations here. In addition to that, you have multiple ways in terms of organizing the content here. So for example, here, let me show you a city. So here, if you know that there are some information that will be helpful for the client tools, I can actually categorize this column saying that like this is a city, right? So this is all part of creation, so that the analyst is actually preparing all of this information, so that when the business users are actually seeing it and dragging and dropping and preparing, if they want to prepare their own reports, it makes it much more simpler and easier, so that it provides the right visualizations and right context when they're doing Q&A as well, right? So these are additional metadata which you are providing. So I would encourage you to go and listen in and then see various things here. So this is content creation initially in the desktop. Once you create the content, then essentially, so once you create the content, you would actually come in and go into get data here. So here there are multiple ways by which you can actually go into get data. So we saw the services with respect to the various software as a service providers. This is what you saw in the keynote demo. So you have various providers here, and then you can click on any of these, enter the credentials, it automatically creates the dashboards and reports for you. But in addition to that, you also have the files where you can actually go and import a local file. You can upload this file. This is one of the files which I created. I can select this file and it will upload. When you upload this, I've uploaded already here. When you upload this, that particular file essentially gets split up into two things, right? So here I uploaded this file DAAD report final, which is what you saw. It splits up the file into a data set, and then it splits up the file also into a report here. So if you see here, DIID report final. So essentially, any Power BI desktop authored file, when you upload it to the service, it creates two entries, right? So one in the reports and one in the data sets. Essentially, on the navigation here, what you see here in the service is you have dashboards, reports, and data sets. When you upload a Power BI desktop file, it splits it up into data set, which is the data model. That's what goes into the data set. And then the reports, the report pages which you see, those go into the reports pages here. So here, once you open up the report, I can actually come in, select a particular visual. Let's say I'm going to select this one. I can open up and select it and then say pin. It'll automatically give a preview of what is getting pinned. And you can also select an existing dashboard or a new dashboard. Once I pin this, I can go, it goes into the dashboard which I pinned. So here I'm going to go into this dashboard, and this is the dashboard which I pinned, and here I automatically have this tile, and I can actually expand this tile. I can, if I want to rearrange these tiles, I can rearrange the tiles into a larger size, and I can actually zoom in. This is what we call as like in focus mode in terms of the tile, and you can actually go and do filtering operations here in terms of doing the filtering operation here, or I'm going to show another example. Let me go back here. And here I've pinned this particular visual. So here, when I go into the in focus mode, I can do an operation. I can actually play this. This is a play axis visual. So it's actually playing over time in terms of how are the various things bubbles reacting. You can also see the trend lines here. So some of the VPs in Microsoft, when they run the rhythm of the business, they actually completely be in the dashboard in a full screen mode. So here they actually be completely in a full screen mode like this, and with the Surface Hub and touch screen, they actually interact and conduct the entire review, rhythm of the business review, completely in the Power BI dashboards here, right? And if you want to go and edit this, so here you have the ability to edit. So here I can actually go and change this. If I want to change the title, I can select, this is where I can set a custom URL and say that I want to be able to, whenever I click on this, I want to go and take me to a different one. Once I select this, so here, when I click on this, now it takes me to Bing, right? So by default, if I, let's say that I remove this, it'll land me into a report page. Let me remove this one. So when I click on the tile here, I pin this visual. When I take it, click on this, it lands me to the report page from which it came in, right? So this is essentially content creation here. So the last portion in terms of creation is databases. So here we support here in terms of connecting to, especially with analysis services and a few other sources, we allow you to connect directly and author reports as well directly on the service. Okay. So if you're doing any modeling operations in terms of data transformations or modeling operations, all of this is available only in the desktop. All of the majority of the report authoring experience which you see in the Power BI desktop is also available in the service. Okay. So we did creating content, and then now managing content. So there are two concepts here in terms of my workspace and the group workspace. So by default, when you log into the service, you're always presented with my workspace, which is essentially a personal workspace, right? So you already have the dashboards, reports, data sets, and content packs. These are in my workspace. Whenever you go into collaboration and you want to be able to manage this content, that's when you get into the group workspace. You create a group, which is essentially group is an Office 365 group. How many of you are familiar with Office 365 groups? Okay, few of you. So essentially Office 365 has this concept of groups. Group is a collection of users, right? Collection of users or members which can be added and managed. This is all aligned with Office 365. As part of you having Power BI, you have the ability to go and create a group, and you can add members in terms of who are the people who are going to be part of the group, so that you can actually collaborate in terms of preparing the dashboards and reports for your team. Okay. And once you prepare these dashboards and reports, that's when you would go and set up data refreshes. And then once you prepare these data refreshes, so that like your data is getting refreshed periodically, whatever the time frequency you set up, then you can actually share it to the entire group, so that the end users who are actually getting the content, they can get it into by simple sharing, like where you are sharing it so that it's completely read-only, or there is also another mechanism called content pack. I'll show this as well. Okay. Yes.
One slide.
Yep.
These groups here, could you also groups in the segments in my CRM?
Sorry, could you also do
segments in the dynamic CRM or in my CRM, so that I have a much, communicate the dashboard with my end users?
So the question is, can I also do groups with respect to CRM and communicate to the users? I don't know the integration between Office 365 and CRM because groups is a concept in Office 365, and I don't know the answer whether there is a tight integration with Dynamic CRM. As far as if it's online and if it's using the same Azure Active Directory, then you should be able to see the groups. Now, what is the functionality within CRM, if there is any integration? There's a question to CRM team. I don't know the answer, so that's why. So it'll be helpful to post on the CRM community forum so that they can provide the answer. Okay. So that's about managing the content. And then in terms of collaboration, so essentially you want to co-manage the content using the Office 365 groups. So the first step would be you are creating from My Workspace. It's probably a little bit hard to read. So you will, by default, will be in your My Workspace. You can actually go in and you can create a plus sign, and you can create a group. So create a group will come in with a group name. You can actually group ID and who are the members you want to add. And then once you add, you can actually specify whether they are co-owners or read-only members. And then as part of you creating the group, as part of you as the owner creating the group, you automatically get a OneDrive, right? OneDrive for the group is automatically created for you. It typically takes about like 30 minutes. When you create a group, you will get a notification that the group OneDrive has been created for you, and a set of other assets with respect to Office 365. So you need to wait for that to be created, and then you can actually upload the content into the OneDrive so that you can actually manage the content directly in OneDrive as well, because that's more easier, so that the content is in a central location that all of the group members can access it, so it's not sitting in your desktop, right? Even if you're on vacation, other people don't have to get to your desktop, rather it's in the group OneDrive, okay? And then as part of Office 365, you also have the ability to get group conversation, calendar, and OneNote. These are all Office 365 features. As part of you doing it, you get the Office 365 group, and you will see all of these in terms of members, calendars, conversations. And then you can go into Office 365 using the sign-in, and you will be able to see emails and conversations, group conversations as part of this, right? This is all Office 365 feature. We are just integrating Power BI along with Office 365. Especially, we see a lot of customers buying along with the E5 license, which is essentially Office 365 E5 includes Power BI. That's where they are leveraging a lot more. Okay. So groups and collaboration here. So here, if you see this, essentially on the left-hand side navigation, this is where you see My Workspace, and then I have group workspaces here, right? So here, you see My Workspace, and then I have a list of group workspaces here. Maybe I need to zoom in. Zoom is actually. Hold on. So, are people in the back able to see this? Right? Sorry. Yeah, so this is where you would actually go in, you click on a group, and I can create a group, I can add a list of members to the group, and I can manage the group, right? So once you create the group, you will automatically, within the group, you will see dashboards, reports, and data sets. You can upload, you can manage content overall from there, okay? And in terms of managing the content, so here I uploaded the report. So this is where I would come in. I want to be able to schedule a refresh. This is where I would come in. Under the data set, I would go and schedule the refresh. And here it is actually detected. So when I did this, it's actually detected that it requires a gateway connection, because it detected I'm using a CSV files, which is on my desktop machine. It's detected that you need a gateway, enter a personal gateway, which I had installed, or an enterprise gateway alternately, and then you can go and set up the schedule in terms of I want to do the refresh daily or not, right? This is more in terms of managing the refresh and schedule, so that like the dashboards and reports are kept up to date with the latest data. Okay. Finally, coming into distribution, so there are three different types of ways you can actually distribute the content coming from Power BI. The first one we call is a static output. I think someone asked about printing, right? How can I deliver this one? So we call this as essentially static output, which you're preparing and providing it to your end users. The second one is live sharing, which is essentially second one. And then your third one is staged sharing, share updates when ready. Okay. So diving into these, so the first one is static output. You currently have the ability to print or export essentially to PDF. So if you go into the dashboard or a report page, you can actually do a print on the dashboard or a report page, and that'll automatically, you can print it as a PDF overall, right? So that's the first one. You can print it as a PDF, and then you can distribute that content. The second one is you can export the data. So when you have the tiles or the visuals, you can actually go into in focus mode. You can actually export the data, which is a part of the tile. That's another way if you want to export it and then share it. And then static embedding in PowerPoint. So this is essentially one of the things with partner. The partner has actually built an add-in into PowerPoint and in Excel where I can actually go and embed tiles, right? So embed tiles or reports, and I can see the latest content. Okay. Yes.
Printing. You know, we had a question earlier. How can you also print the multi-dimensions of the dashboard, or can you just print what you see?
It's only print what you see right now.
Okay.
It's only printing.
There was a question, if you could print.
No, you can't.
The extensions.
Yeah.
See, we bought them.
Yeah, you have to print one report page at a time, at this time. Okay. So in terms of live sharing, this is essentially dashboard sharing. So we have two mechanisms. You can do internal sharing or external sharing. So internal sharing is essentially I can share a dashboard to appear within my company, right? External sharing is essentially what we call as cross-tenant sharing, where so I'm part of Microsoft as a tenant. Then if I build a dashboard, I can actually share it to Samuel. He's part of a different tenant, different company. Then it's an external one. That's the difference between internal and external sharing. You can actually stop your dashboard from being reshared. So this is a permissions issue in terms of the analyst who is preparing the dashboard and sharing. They have the control in terms of when I share the dashboard, for example, to Romy, I can give her privileges whether I allow Romy to share the same dashboard to other people in the company, or I only restrict it only to Romy, right? I have the flexibility and control, which the analyst has the permissions, especially if it's more of a very secure data. The analyst might be interested in sharing only to the list of people and not even sharing to the remaining people, right? So that's something which to look into. And you can also turn off email notifications when sharing, because by default, when you share the dashboards, there's an email automatically sent to the end user. A lot of the customers said, like, I don't want this email to go out. I want to share this to the users. I want to get the URL, and then I want to send it in an email along with other text and everything. So that flexibility is also there here. And then the other way is adding group members within the read or edit privileges. You can add additional members into the group so that they actually get added to the group and they can come and see the dashboards and view them in a read-only mode. And publish from Power BI to the web. So this is something which released in February, I think. Both cross-tenant sharing and publish to web also released. So where you can actually publish a report, like a public report, that you can actually embed in Sway or any of the public one. Recently, I think there was a presidential election in one of the countries in Asia. They actually ran the elections with publish to web. They were actually showcasing entire thing in terms of publish to web, like what are the election results, how are they progressing. And we are actually planning additional things. We did initially in Redmond, we did with King 5, which is a local TV channel. We ran the election primaries with respect to the Democratic and Republican parties, showcasing this in terms of how the election results are in King 5 with publish to web as well, right on a Surface Hub. And hopefully we'll plan for the final presidential elections also with publish to web. Okay. And then live embedding in PowerPoint. So this is essentially what the partner has done in terms of live embedding in PowerPoint. You can actually embed your tiles and reports. So what we call a stage sharing is essentially organizational content pack. So what this essentially is, you can group a collection of data sets, reports, and dashboards. You can actually group them, package them together, and you can publish them as what we call as organizational content packs. So once you publish this, and you can actually secure them, who can see this, and then your end users can actually go and see these organizational content packs, discover this, and get the entire thing installed. By default, it gets installed as a read-only content pack, read-only, and then they can actually personalize it if they want. They can duplicate the dashboard, they can personalize it, they can make the changes and layout, and then they can prepare it. Okay? Yes?
I have a question about sharing,
yes.
live sharing. Who can schedule and refresh the report data? Like everyone, the readers and the editors, or only some dedicated people?
Yeah, so the question is who can schedule the refresh of the data set. The data set is always owned by the owner of the data set, whoever is creating it. Only he or she or the people in the group, if you're doing it in a group, the people in the group, those are the only people who have permissions to schedule the refresh, right? But that is the scheduling of the data refresh, right? But once you share the dashboard to the end users can get the latest data. Let's say that their dashboard is not updated, they can actually go and onto the dashboard and then say, get me the latest data, right? But they cannot refresh the data. Whatever the data the owner has set up, that's it's going to get the data and then provide it.
Even the group members that are editors, they get the last data, but they cannot refresh.
The group members can actually schedule the refresh. Like the group members, if they have read-write permissions, they can schedule the refresh.
Okay.
If they have read-write permissions. If they have read permission, they cannot do anything. So now going into org content pack lifecycle. So this is essentially a flow with respect to org content pack. So this is in terms of the workflow, there's a lot of text. We're going to share the deck. So I'll give you a very simple overview of how this works. So I am an analyst. I'm preparing a report. So once I prepare the report, I'm going to be able to take this report, publish it to Power BI service, prepare the dashboard or a set of dashboards. Now I want to be able to share this to the end users. In several cases, the analyst wants to only have control, or IT has only control this in terms of, I don't want my end users to personalize and add additional reports. They want to see exactly what I'm providing, but they can do interactivity and get insights and everything. So in that case, then sharing is the mechanism. They can share it to a security group and then they can manage that. In other cases, some of the analysts, they don't want to be bothered. They're preparing the initial data model, but additional reports can be authored by the business users. Then in that case, they will share it as a content pack or content pack. So you can share this as an organizational content pack. You can package a list of things, group of things, share it, and then the end users will actually install it, and then they can personalize it, add additional reports as part of it. Right. So this is the entire workflow. Then after that, when the business analyst comes and says, okay, I'm doing a version 2, then version 2 automatically gets published into the org content pack. The end users automatically get all of the data, right? So automatically they see the metadata and the data changes automatically. Okay, that's the overall workflow of that. So demo, let me go through the demo here. So when I go into get data here, I see so before I go in, I can actually, let me show you how to prepare an org content pack. So here I go into settings and I can create a content pack, right? So I'm in this dashboard here. When I go in and say create a content pack, this is where I would come in and I can actually say, this is my organizational content for sales team, right? I can enter it. So I think this one was the group. Sorry, give me. This is the title of this, and I can enter the email address. So for example, I can say I'm going to share this to Romy. It has AAD to AD integration. As I type in, it recognizes her email address. I can enter individual email addresses. I can enter entire security groups as part of this. I can enter a security group if you're an enterprise company. That's primarily what they are asking for. And then I can provide a description about this is part of sales reports. Then I can actually prepare list of reports which I actually want to use in terms of like the reports which I want to use. I can select the dashboards, the reports, as well as data sets. I can select this and then I can publish this as a content pack, right? So when I publish this as a content pack here, this will essentially come up when I go into content pack. When I go into here, I can go into my organization, and very, very similar to the services, click on it. Let's see what waiting for getting the content overall. Okay, so this is the list of content which I have access. So when I go into my organization, I see into my organization, these are all the content packs which I have access to. So if Romy goes into the same thing, she will see a totally different set of things. So I can actually navigate all of the content packs which are there. I can go and install them into my workspace or in a group workspace, and then I will automatically get a set of dashboards, reports, and data set automatically created for me. Okay? So this is about organizational content pack. You're packaging a collection of data sets, reports, and dashboards, and sharing it to your end users. By default, this will become read-only, and then the users have the ability to duplicate the dashboard and duplicate the report, and then they can actually make changes into the report, and they can author new reports as well. They will only have read access to the data set. They don't have write access to the data set. As part of this, the owner of the dashboard or the report is the only person who can actually make changes to the data set, delete it, or overall make changes in terms of when they can schedule the refresh, etc. Okay. Yes?
Content packs can be transferred to SharePoint, or they stay inside Power BI?
They stay. The question is, can the content pack be transferred to SharePoint? The content packs do not get transferred to SharePoint. They stay in Power BI. So we also have a few more additional controls in terms of content distribution. This is a related topic in terms of content distribution. So here, a tenant admin is empowered to say, I don't want my customers to actually share to external users, because some of the enterprise companies, they say that like I want to disallow any customer, any users in my company to share any of the dashboard externally. They're worried about security and everything. They don't want to share. Then we have provided this tenant admin controls in terms of allow or disallow external sharing, right? Cross-tenant sharing or publish to web. This is another control. So these are controls which the tenant admin has in terms of deciding whether they want to allow users to share external to my company, right? So they're usually very risk averse here. And in terms of, you have the tenant admin control. The author defines reshare. So this, in terms of author defining reshares, is essentially the author has the ability to say whether it can be shared or reshared to other people. And then you also have another functionality called row level security. You can actually restrict the data in terms of who sees the data. So this is in preview right now, which is a feature in preview. You can actually restrict the data as well. Okay. Okay. So let me just show you one last thing, and then after that we have one more slide. I just want to show you the sharing experience, and then after that you have one more slide. So I'm going to go back to here. So here, when I go into share, I have this option here. So here I can actually type in Romy as a person here, and it automatically picks up Romy, and I can include the messages here. So here, if you see in the bottom here, allow recipients to share your dashboard, right? So this is the control, fine-grained control. I can deselect this and say that I don't want the end user whom I'm sharing to, they cannot share this to other people, right? They will never ever see the sharing icon for this dashboard. And then I can also disallow, say, avoid sending emails notification. So there will be no email notification. They can actually, the author of the dashboard can actually go and get access in terms of this is the dashboard link. They can get the access to the dashboard link and automatically send this an email, like a URL that they can actually go and see the dashboard. Okay, so this is, if there is one takeaway from this presentation, this is probably the most important one a lot of the customers ask. How do I go and create the content and share to various teams? And this is one of the internally prepared this as a best practice documentation in terms of for various teams. We'll also be I'll also have a best practices webinar sometime in August, which I walk through. As part of this, I will also walk through additional things in terms of optimizing, in terms of tenant and location, on-premise, where do you have the gateway and everything. But the key thing would be, especially for teams and organization, if you're preparing a dashboard, create a group. Right, first thing is to create a group. You're adding a set of users who can collaborate with you and prepare the content. Create a group, add the owners, upload the reports to the group OneDrive, right? You can upload your reports, the Power BI authored reports or Excel reports into the group OneDrive. Enable versioning on this. Enable versioning on this. So this is important in terms of enabling versioning. It's essentially a file. You have a version history, who made the changes essentially. So it helps you to go, even if you made a mistake, you can go back and revert it, right? and then bring these reports into Power BI using the group OneDrive, create the dashboard, set up enterprise gateway if needed, provide the right permissions who have access for refreshes. The question was who can refresh the data. You can set up an enterprise gateway who has access, and then share via security group as an organizational content pack. Right? You can share it as an organizational content pack or like a sharing. If it's sharing, it's just read-only dashboards. But if you're doing it as an organizational content pack, then you can actually manage it and you can revise it and you can republish content packs as a content pack creation. That's pretty much what I had. Romy had a better slide in terms of all the references. This is essentially documentation link for the Power BI. And any questions, I'm happy to take for 1 or 2 minutes, which are pending. Thank you.